do I have an agenda? I mean, what, is it here?
Yeah, that's all of it.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'd like to call the August 26, 2014 meeting of the Finance Advisory and Audit Committee to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Standish,
Present.
Vice Chair Miller,
Here.
Committee Member Chu,
Yeah.
and the record note that Member Ken Johnson is absent tonight.
Okay. And for the record, do we need to know who else is here? Should I make note of that, or you?
The town manager, Mark Cutney, Bill Underwood, from Underwood Management Services Group.
Mr. Chu like to do that, so I just want to be consistent.
Well, because they will be a speaker, so put them on record.
Okay, before I make a motion to approve the agenda, or ask for a motion to approve the agenda, we have been informed there's some people here that if you could tell us
Sure.
what's
Madam
going
Chair.
on.
Yes, tonight we have a couple of gentlemen here. We have John Carter from Minto Properties and Don Herring from Kotler Herring, representing
From where?
Minto.
Don?
Don Herring from Kotler Herring,
Okay.
representing Minto. These gentlemen came with the idea of possibly giving you a presentation. If you're so inclined, you can hear their, what I would call an informational presentation. I will say this for the record, as you know, the town council has adopted a resolution which basically opposes the Minto project. As town manager, I'm bound to follow that policy. That is the direction to town management staff. So there is no action item or anything for this body to do tonight, other than if you're willing to hear them, they would be happy to give you a quick presentation on their property.
I have no problem with that as long as there's no action. We know what the town council's opinion is.
I'd like to say that I may have a conflict because I co-own a piece of property right next to the development.
Right.
So if any action to be taken by
There's no
this
action.
committee or looking at any relation, I will be abstaining on the vote. So I will be consider myself as a regular resident of the town, and then I'll be more than happy to hear the presentation.
No objection. No objection.
Okay, now we have,
We could put that as 3B if you'd like, or you could, wherever you want.
well, I'd like to just get it over. Let's see where we are on the agenda. Let's get this. I'd like to, are you suggesting we go ahead with the consent agenda, discuss the minutes, and then make it 3A? Let's make it 3A and then move review of draft capital improvements to 3B, so we can just, would anybody, do I need
So
someone?
say it again.
What I'm suggesting is or what I was asking Mark, initially I thought perhaps he was suggesting doing it before the consent agenda, but we can go through with the consent agenda, approve the minutes, discuss the minutes, and then make their presentation 3A, and move the review of draft capital improvements cost sharing policy to 3B. Or anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion passes 2-0. Okay, now, for moving that, I'm sorry, 3-0, sorry. I am here, 3-0.
Unless you were voting against.
No, that's fine, they're here, we'll listen to what they have to say now. So that's going to be 3A is Minto presentation, 3B is review of draft capital. Okay. Now we can go ahead and ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion passes 3-0. Or do I need to ask for all those in favor? I realize it's only 3 of us. I should still ask all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. Motion passes 3-0. Okay. Start with the minutes. 3-0. Minutes are approved. And this brings us to 3A. Gentlemen? Oh, excuse me, we do have for the record, Keith Harris. Which item is this? You didn't write down which item.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say as a citizen, I'd be interested in hearing Minto speak.
Okay, do we need a comment card for that, or that's just a general comment? We don't need,
Okay.
okay, so you
We're a
can, in case
little,
you have anything else.
we're a little informal, so if you just raise your hand and Virginia will call you out, you don't have to fill out a form to make comments.
Thank you.
We're a small little group.
Just remember that when I show up at your meeting.
And getting small municipal.
Shoot, I won't let you run it.
Well, good evening. My name is Don Hearing, and with me is Mr. John Carter. I'm a land planner, and John is with Minto Communities. And we're here just to give you a little bit of information about the project. There's an awful lot that you read in the press, and a lot of people saying no to Minto, and we just want to give you the facts and the information, and hopefully get any feedback that you have from us. The one thing that we tell everybody when we meet with them is that we really are here to listen, and that we have listened, and that we have an open door and an open dialogue. I would tell you that there aren't too many people that really want to sit down with us and meet with us and engage in a dialogue and a discussion of how we can work together. But our doors are open. John is out here in the Western community now. His office is here at Calvary Judge, and we're available to meet at any time, and to not only to keep you informed about what we're doing, but to be able to give you the facts about what the Minto West project is. Also, I would tell you is that we have really spent a lot of time trying to become educated, to understand the Western community, to understand the concerns, understand the objections, and I would tell you that the plan that we have is a plan where we really have tried to respond to what we've heard. Now, we haven't had anyone to sit down and talk to and say, do you like this, do you like this? Because they haven't engaged us, so we're negotiating against ourselves, but we really have tried to listen to the concerns and to address them. And probably the best way for us to perhaps share why we believe that this is a good project, why we're pursuing it, why the county and the state are supportive of this project, is really to compare what we're proposing with what is currently approved. And as you all are aware, that the area that sits out here, and I'll put a larger version up down here on the bottom, but the area that sits up here, surrounded by about 33 square miles of the acreage, a population of about 38 to 40,000 people. What's approved is a plan which is 2,996 dwelling units and 235 square feet of non-residential. And when Minto bought the property, we literally sat down and said, is there a better way to develop a project that might be larger in terms of units, but would be more sustainable to the community in the long term and can provide some better benefits, and in many ways could be more compatible and less impactful to the community. And so you say, well, Don, how do you increase your number of dwelling units and become more compatible and less impactful? And I think we do that through good planning. And in saying that, Loxahatchee Groves and the acreage, from a land planner's perspective, and Mark's very familiar with planning, is really a perfect setting, because we're not trying to in any way change Loxahatchee Groves or change the acreage. they fit absolutely perfect into the landscape. But what we're trying to do is to create an area of higher density that's located in the hole of the donut, with lower densities radiating out from that, so that we have a more efficient use of infrastructure where the services that are needed are provided in an area which is located in the center, and then you've got lower densities that radiate out to the outer side, as opposed to basically the approach of put it all around the periphery, which is generally not the best planning technique. And I'm a planner, so I think of planning. But if you go back to the old towns of America, and you think of the little Main Street, whether you're in rural Georgia where my parents live, in Quitman, where you live somewhere else, you have small town, you have a town center where you've got a main street, and there's much more intensity in those areas. And then as you get further in, and you've got smaller lots that are closer to the town, and as you move further away, you get out to the farms. And so that's exactly the planning principle that we're following in order to create some sustainability within the center part of this. Our plan is larger. The plan that we propose, that we have made, original plan was 6,500 dwelling units and 1.4 million square feet of non-residential. And when we say non-residential, we're not talking about retail. We do have a limited amount of community serving retail, but we're not talking a regional mall. We're not talking the Wellington Green Mall, which is the Wellington Green Mall, by the way, is about 1.3 million square feet, and then there's about another 750,000 square feet around it, just for reference perspective. And so that was our original plan. There was a lot of objections that we heard from the community about what could we do to make our buffers larger, what could we do to reduce the density and the intensity, what could we do to provide more recreation, what could we do to provide public service sites for fire stations and for parks. And so we listened, and we went back and we created a new plan. So just in kind of looking in contrast, with 2996, which is what we're approved, and basically what I call the equivalence of a public shopping center, from a planning perspective, the traffic dynamic is that everybody is going to have to go to the east in order to get goods and services. Under the statute in which this is approved, it's required to be developed utilizing new urban principles, whether we do 2996 or what we propose. So it's going to look different no matter what. So it's required to use those new urban principles. So the thought of rebalancing the land use by providing some workplace opportunities and creating literally what would be a small town helps take more efficient use of the infrastructure. But just in looking at the comparisons of the two plans, in the existing plan, the surrounding area, there was only a requirement that there be a 100-foot buffer. So this is Loxahatchee Groves to the south, Loxahatchee Groves here to the south, and within 100 feet of the boundary of that site, the density would be 3 dwelling units to the acre. And so, in contrast, while our density in terms of the total number of units is greater, we've been very thoughtful, and because when Mayor Browning has been very respectful to us, but he has a difference of opinion, said, listen, please think about the impact to Loxahatchee Groves. And so first he said, don't connect with any roads. Please don't connect to A road or B road. Don't connect to the road. So we've not done that. We have access on Seminole Pratt Whitney, and then we basically have 2 other roads. One is Persimmons, which is a Palm Beach County thoroughfare plan road, been on the thoroughfare plan for a long time, certainly prior to 1995. And the same thing is with 60th. And they're Palm Beach County thoroughfare roads. So we connect to those 2 roads and none of the other roads in Loxahatchee Groves. So these roads that are down here, we don't. This is 40th is somewhere around. Is it 40th? I think you call it 40th. Is somewhere down below our boundary, and there's no connections to that L. So we listened to that, and then we also, really tried to understand, well, what can we do in terms of separation? And so we have committed to a 400-foot separation, 400-foot buffer from the boundary of the community. In addition to that, we've taken literally about 2/3 of our homes and we've put them in the center. We've done that for two reasons. One, from a planning standpoint, from us urbanists' thoughts, planning perspective, is that way you can at least walk to get service as opposed to having to rely on a car. But the other purpose is that to create this gradient of density. And so around the perimeter of our entire project, we have very, very low density planned unit developments, 400-foot buffer, but within an 1/8 mile of the property boundary. That's 2 football fields, an 1/8 mile of the property boundary. Our density is less than 0.8 units to the acre. And so that's a good transition to the lower densities that occur to the south. So we've been very respectful of that. In the existing plan that's approved, and we've done a plan, I can tell you exactly how it would lay out. The density would be 3 units to the acre within 100 feet. And so now it's 0.8 units to the acre within an 1/8 of a mile, about 660 feet. Also, as far as from an open space perspective, and you all obviously have wonderful open space out here, from an open space perspective, the approved plan, and you can kind of see it, pretty much peanut butters itself across the land. It uses up all of the land. It doesn't conserve any of the land. Whereas, you out here, you have your house on a portion of the land, and the balance of the land is used for agriculture. Here they peanut butter it all with housing across the entire property, and they have 40% open space, but the open space also includes a lot of open space, like kind of enclosed within the community that generally the public can't see. In contrast, the plan that we propose now has 55% open space. So you say, well, what is that? 55% open space. That is equivalent to 2,100 acres of land. It is significant, and that 55% does not include 1 square foot of green space that exists inside these residential parcels. And the plan that I'm showing up top here is what we call a block plan, where you can see how the development begins to take a physical form. Down below, it's in a bubble form, so that there's none of the green that you see in the more detailed plan is calculated into that 40% open space. We're proposing a significant number of parks. We're actually the acreage as a whole, 33 square miles. 38,000 people, has basically 66 acres of land, of parks. That's a very, very small measure. It's about, according to the county's comprehensive plan, it's maybe about 1/5 of what they need for their region. And they generally look about 5 acres per a population of 1,000. So we're providing 242 acres of public parks that would be constructed, and probably more importantly, since you're a fiscal body here, in terms of looking at fiscal review, maintained by Seminole Improvement District, because the county doesn't have money. And so there's a 125-acre regional park. There could be some equestrian activities associated with that. A 50-acre park located south of Seminole Ridge High School, and another 67-acre park co-located with the middle school and elementary school. So significant amount of recreation, and that doesn't include any of the private recreation that every individual parcel would end up having. So big differences between the two plans. So there's an increase of 1,500 dwelling units, but there is a substantial amount of benefit, which we believe makes this really more compatible and less impactful because it's done in a better way. From a civic perspective, we have about 125 acres of civic sites. Civic sites are, they can be parks, but we're proposing a fire station site. Right now, the fire station times out here are not the best. The fire station that's not very, it's in the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center, and they have limited facilities there. We're proposing a 25,000 square foot sheriff substation site and another site for governmental services, a 12-acre elementary school site, as well as sites for churches and synagogues and community centers and other public uses. And that's a big difference to the plan. And, for example, if you look at the existing approved plan, they provided some civic area, and it was intended to be used for a little bit of a park to kind of supplement those fields that are at Seminole Ridge High School. But what they included was kind of the ditch that runs behind, or canal, I don't want to call it a ditch, it's a major canal that runs behind Seminole Ridge High School. They tried to call that a civic site. All of our sites are exclusive of any drainage. We're taking on all of that drainage, so it makes it a much larger site in reality. Water resources. The existing plan that's approved provides absolutely no commitment to the environment or to water resources. Of course, now there's no environmental resources on the site to be damaged, it's already been farmed. But what we're proposing to do is several things. We're proposing to provide a significant regional benefit for not only legal positive outfall, what we call peak discharge of 168 CFS. In addition to that, 250 acres of lake that would be provided for additional storage that would flow through the site. We are proposing a lot of what you see in blue will be constructed and developed as basically marshes, wetlands. We're going to be digging a lot of lakes, and quite frankly, we don't want to have to haul that fill off-site, so we can dig shallower lakes and plant them with marshes and basically recreate a lot of that wetland habitat that was once there. What is that good for? It's good for recharge to the aquifer, and of course the wildlife benefits that are there. And so that's a significant commitment that we have made that nobody else has made before. And then in addition to that, to the north of our site is the M Canal. Because we're an agricultural operation, we have the permitted right to pump 3 billion gallons of water out of that canal every single year. 3 billion gallons of water. It is a significant volume of water. If you've seen Lake Mangonia, I think it's like 1.5 Lake Mangonias in terms of size on an annual basis. Well, that amount of discharge will, yes ma'am.
Could you clarify, you said because you're an agricultural operation, you're implying you will go forward as an agricultural operation to maintain your...
I'll clarify.
Yes,
I'll clarify that in 2 ways. Well, we will no longer have the same requirement or needs for that water. So our right is before that. Of course, the M Canal, serves the city of West Palm Beach, and they have we have first right to that water from the M Canal before they do. But that water, we are looking at maintaining some acreage in agricultural production as a means of providing a buffer to our community. So the area in the western area of the site, it's probably well over a mile by about 3/4 of a mile where we have absolutely no development at all. And even in the back area here, it's about 3/4 of a mile from the southern boundary to the first residential home. And we're looking at maintaining a lot of that in agricultural use. And so there will be some discharge or some use of those 3 billion gallons, but what we don't use will be able to continue to flow to the city of West Palm Beach, go into Grassy Waters, go to the Waxahachie. There's a balance of where that water goes. We also are looking in the eastern portion of the plan. We've got some very large green areas, about 1/2 mile in width, and those areas would also likely be maintained in some sort of, whether it's a tree farm or whether there's a community garden, some sort of agricultural use could be contemplated in those areas, because it takes a lot of energy to mow that much area. Our real thought is that the majority of what you see in green would likely be reforested and native pine lands and natural habitat. just because, you know, from an energy perspective, and we're looking at being a sustainable community, you don't want to have to mow that much grass. So the amount of agriculture that goes on the site in the future will be significantly less than what's there, that's there today. From an employment perspective, the existing plan as it was approved, and you should know that when they were seeking their approval from the county begged the developer at the time to consider more non-residential uses as a means to begin to rebalance the land use and provide some employment opportunities. And so when I say non-residential, I'm not talking shopping center, the Wellington Green Mall, or the strip shopping that's along State Road 7. We're talking about opportunities for employment, whatever that may be. And so there was no commitment at all. In fact, they almost spited the county by saying, we're only going to do 235,000 square feet, because that meant that 100% of their population is impacting everybody else in order to get their goods and services. Our roadways are being designed as beautiful rural parkways. So there'll be, and literally these roadways that go through the site, there's an 80-foot right-of-way, but then there's 50 feet on either side of that right-of-way at a minimum, and in most cases close to 300 or 400 feet. That is just going to be natural areas with meandering pathways and sidewalks, so that when you go through the community, you don't see visually the stark difference from what you would see out here in terms of pine land. Once you get into the individual neighborhood, you'll see a difference, because it has to be different by way of the statute. And we're also in working with the county on Seminole Pratt Whitney. We're actually putting 80-foot rural parkways on either side of Seminole Pratt Whitney, so it would look like it's forested. So like when you go by north of our site and you go by where the Publix is, you don't see the Publix, you see the pine lands, and so there isn't a real stark contrast that all of a sudden you enter the property that you know as Minto, and you see this stark contrast. I will tell you that I believe that there's probably more of a contrast today with what you see with the ag operation than what you'll see when we're done developing that parkway. So that's one of the things that we're doing. We have done something that the county had asked the previous developer to do, is to come in with a plan and show us what you're going to do. And he really said, well, I'll give you this cartoon of a bubble. I mean, that's about as cartoonish as you could get, a cartoon of a bubble, and he didn't want to analyze his impacts and identify what he would need to do in order to meet the required levels of service. And so in contrast, what we've done, we've come in and simultaneously, we put all of our cards on the table so that you can see exactly what we're proposing, what our buffers are, what our streets are going to look like, how we're going to lay out the housing, so that it's consistent. Because, like I said, he could put 3 units to the acre all the way up to the boundary, and likely would. I mean, he's going to use every piece of real estate that he can use. And so we're able to come in and do that. And when they had gone through with this, in fact, the county would tell you that they actually set up the process and the rules and the regulations so that they could actually basically do a piecemeal approach to the development. They could actually piecemeal each individual parcel, and they could then, in many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways, circumvent a lot of the concurrency requirements and the obligations to provide money to build roads. And of course, we're looking to build this as a community. They were looking to basically come in and flip it to developers and to sell it out. Minto, who's been out in the Western community for a long time, is here really to build a community. And it's a 20 to 30-year project. So it's not going to be built overnight. We think that you probably won't see the first home in there to maybe 2017. You'll start to see some development activity in 2016. And so that's just a good way to look at the differences between the two plans. Now, we hear an awful lot about roads and traffic, and of course, it's important to know that, there are some roads with deficiencies that are here today. And there are some roads that have projected to have deficiencies over the next 20 years. This project, what we're doing, we are actually will be paying about $60 million in traffic contributions. And we hear a lot these days, Mark, and you're familiar with the concept of proportionate fair share. You hear a lot about that. We're actually paying almost twice our impact fees, which is really, in the world of proportionate fair share, is unheard of. So we're providing contributions well beyond our what we say our proportionate fair share is, and we're also trying to work with the communities, Wellington and others, and the county to help target those monies toward the roads that are identified as a priority. And also, like you all, I mean, we have these beautiful rural parkways going through our community, and I know Okeechobee Boulevard goes through your community, and Okeechobee is one of those roads that, whether we go forward or not, at some point in time has to be improved. But if you could have a say in how that was being done, and what that looks like, that obviously is a benefit, because you do have a way to make it more palatable. And we hear a lot about, well, there's this deficit, there's no money. Yes, there's a $90 million gap. Well, I think if any of you attend the hearing tomorrow with the county, I think you'll hear the county say, well, that's not totally true. We have the MPO spends a lot of time planning. They know where their funds come from. For example, we're going to be providing $50 million. There's 3,000 undeveloped lots in the acreage alone. That produces another $20 million. The Palm Beach aggregates, which, to me, that's not my favorite project because it doesn't meet these planning principles that we subscribe to. That's just putting a community out on the periphery. But Palm Beach aggregates will be about $15 million. And for example, Florida Research Park has millions to pay, Pratt Whitney does. So there are funds to improve these roads as those deficiencies occur over the next 20 years. And so with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. We're always available to meet with you, to discuss the project, to get your ideas. And we have, just for example, in the acreage, we actually have 3 connections to the east, and we eliminated 3, provided larger buffers. At one point in time, we had more commercial along our northern boundary. We took that out. We really have tried to listen and to respond. We are proposing some equestrian trails. And I should state that because I think we're meeting with your trail group tomorrow night. We may be tired, Mark, just in case we're tired, but you'll understand. But we have Minto owns what we call the M2 canal, and it runs 5 miles from our site through Loxahatchee Groves to the C51 canal. It's a 200-foot right-of-way, great opportunity for trails, to provide connectivity to connect to what's in your community. We've also looked in many areas for opportunities to provide equestrian trails around the perimeter of our site and engaging our park, an opportunity for about 15 miles of trails. And so, we're coming so that we can be better educated. And we met with the horsemen a couple of times, and quite frankly, I'm very intrigued. It's a neat industry, and the more we can understand, the better we can plan for to avoid those conflicts with cars and other things. So I'll stop talking. I've talked enough. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? No. Okay, the biggest impact I see is the southeast corner. The Palm Beach Post has that as an industrial or
The southeast corner, right
the
here.
south, the Silver Lakes to the south. That's the one area you didn't touch, which touches close to us.
Well, I would hope it would never be industrial.
Well, Palm Beach Post has it, had it identified as something, I don't know what it was labeled
This,
as.
over here to the south, and I'm glad you brought that up, is a
Park.
large preserve area, which I understand has some wonderful equestrian facilities in it. And in fact, we've been talking, you know, conceptually, and we'll be speaking a little bit more about the opportunity to provide trails within our site, within our Rule Parkway that runs all the way up along 140th that we would have. But then the opportunity to create a connection just a little further south on 140th to get to that park, so that the park can get up to potentially someday even up to the acreage park, or perhaps down 40th, I think it is, right? Is that 40th? The one road, you call this the main road?
North Road, 40th.
40th, so
Yeah.
down 40th, and, you know, and perhaps up to be able to get to some trails along our boundary. So I would see, we by design, understanding your sensitivity, have tried to be very forthright and looked at a much lower density as we've approached Loxahatchee Grove. So, I mean, Silver Lake could develop in the future. We've provided a great buffer around Silver Lake, but I would never see industrial. Industrial would be 100% incompatible and an inappropriate land use and wouldn't meet the requirements of the comprehensive plan. Now, it could be something that's agriculturally related that would make a lot of sense.
I think that was a map error on
The posts,
the post part. None of our plans from day one have ever showed any type of non-residential uses in that corner.
And even as far as industrial, we do have some proposed industrial uses, but we've been very forthright. We've gone out and immediately said that, you know, that we're limiting that. There'll be no logistics or basically trucking, which is like Aldi's. It's there on, not that somebody would want to do trucking here, but you know, it's a type, if we could have some, you know, some light manufacturing or some engineering type jobs, that's really the focus. It's not going to be life sciences, that's to the east. It'll be something different.
the biggest concern, you said you have moved exits on the east side, and you only have two now?
Yeah, we, both Persimmon and 160th are Palm Beach County thoroughfare plans that have been on the thoroughfare plan at least since 1995. In fact, they're actually, if you read the acreage neighborhood plan, they're talked about in great detail as something that was planned for and something that was needed. We had another connection down at Orange Grove, and we heard a lot of objection to that, so we removed it.
But the concern is still that the traffic can still come south down because we'll have the college here, you have going to Wellington, so there is concern of the impact on our roads is what we have to consider.
Yeah, you know, they could, you're absolutely right, that they could. I would think if they were going south, they might go a different route, but most of our traffic, the good news is when we've rebalanced the land use, we will actually now have more cars coming in during the peak hour from, generally not from West Palm Beach, but from the acreage, to get to the employment center. Then we will have cars going out. So in the morning, more cars coming in the afternoon, more cars going out, which is directly opposite of the pattern that currently exists. So it uses a more efficient use of the existing infrastructure.
So we can just hope they stay above, oh, go
Oh,
ahead
let
now.
me finish it.
No, I said, oh, we can just hope that the southeast corner stays green and traffic doesn't flow south, is what we can hope.
You know, and there are
And that
ways.
our horses and our golf carts, because we have people on horses and buggy using our roads to make a living, to exercise their horses. You know, there is an equestrian commercial industry in our town, and there are people who are concerned about the impact on it.
And you know, we see that as of value because it provides the variety. So somebody could come out here and they could live in a smaller house. They could enjoy the equestrian activities, or Somebody might work here and want to live on, on a larger place. I think, and there are ways to deal with traffic calming to kind of discourage cars from going down 140th, which is that a letter road? Just 140th? 140th all the way. They're going down 140th to get to the south. And so those are the things that we need to, to work on and to talk about, because there'll be very easy access to get to State Road 7. So if you're going to go to, you're trying to get to State Road 7, you just go straight there, and it's a very quick road to get there.
Yeah, wearing the hat as a resident in Tallahatchie, I really appreciate John and Don, you guys come over and give us a quick briefing. Been reading the paper, they have a lot of different comments from different community, and I just happened to read the editorial on Monday. I think they paint a more comprehensive picture of the whole project. If you haven't
I missed that.
Yeah, it's a bunch of paper. They
How
talk
many
about-
We were shocked.
Yeah, it's a
We
very
were
good-
shocked.
I mean, I think it's a very fair.
Oh, do you happen to have
Oh, you have that? Ah!
Just happen to have that. It's rare we get such
It's very
a.
rare we get any good
Can I
prize.
see your picture?
positive?
I think it's not to, since you guys know,
Thank you.
I think it's talking about they said it very well that, if not Middle West, it will be somebody else. It's going to happen anyway. If the development could be proceeding that with the caring for the neighborhood, for the local citizens, I think you guys have done a lot of those. You're talking about the environmental conservation, the water, the drainage. Comparing to what it was before, there's a big difference. So, of course, when you nitpick every little one, you'll find some room for improvement. But I think for the overall schematic, I think that as a very conservative person, I see it very well done. You see all this green space, and we talk about excavation, we talk about the water usage, the water discharge helping for acreage.
And we've even spoken to Loxahatchee Grove's Water Control District, because there's some opportunities there. And so please understand that, we do want to be good neighbors, and there's some opportunities for, during the dry periods of time, to be able to get water to you. I don't think, you don't have any drainage issues, you're well drained.
We are dry.
But
When we have issue with the fire suppression, everybody talk about, I know Marcus, they try to bring up the discussion of how do we need to build a reservoir to have water in case we need it for fire suppression. I hope that you guys could help us out too.
Yeah, well, there are some benefits that we can do to talk, if we can talk, and we've had some great conversations, and we're continuing those with Mr. Yowie and his engineering staff about how we make that work. So, and that's positive to the region.
And the other thing I hope that when Middle West put in some $60 million into the community, to the county, I hope that a lot of money will stay within our vicinity.
Well, and that
improve our.
And that's where, at some point in time, if we could come together, at least on what we agree on, there's always going to be. I think we have the opportunity to make sure that $60 million is only traffic. There's lots of other monies being spent. I mean, that's just a fraction of what's being spent. But it's on traffic, and you're right, it needs to be spent on the right way. And Okeechobee Boulevard needs to be done right. And it needs to be, respect the rural character that's within, within Loxahatchee Groves.
Keith, do you have a comment?
Yes, domestic water. Are you going to have your own facilities? Do you tie in Palm Beach County?
Palm Beach County already has lines that basically ring the site, so what we'll be doing is basically buying bulk water and bulk sewer from Waxahachie Groves, and then Seminole Improvement District will distribute it. We do have a water and sewer plant on site, where right now we serve the schools, I think is what we're serving, and that, we would anticipate dismantling that, it's located right in this region, dismantling that, and then just utilizing Palm Beach County Water Utilities facilities, which would be more efficient, rather than having a whole nother utility.
Do you know what hydraulic elevation you're gonna hold your water table at?
He does.
Yeah, we're looking at 17, I think, our engineer is Bob Higgins. We may talk in some of the discussion with Steve Yowie. There may be an opportunity maybe to stage in this quadrant down to 16 and a half.
That's where the water district goes there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
So we're pretty much where you see grade today is where we want to hold going forward. We believe we've got really solid soil quality, so we don't need to do a lot of excavating and, piling up dirt to raise it. So we think as a result of that, in fact, here in the last couple of months, we've actually tried to keep the water a little bit lower on the property and testing that, getting it to 16 and a half.
I know the water district spends probably a good six figures on their electric bills for running their pumps annually. A lot of it's during the summertime to pump water in to maintain our hydraulic elevation. It's kept at 16.5 because it's higher than what Little Pond keeps theirs to help maintain our water. We have a lot of large tract farmlands on the perimeter of our property, which during the summer is taking a lot of water. With that, it's causing a lot of pumping by the water district, runs up bills. Will y'all be able to help us by somehow funneling waters to us?
And
That's what
we've looked at.
we've
with
discussed.
Steve
We'll have
Yowie.
600 plus acres of lake, so we'll have an opportunity to store a lot of water on our site, probably billions of gallons of water just
Well,
on
if
the
you could
site.
share that with them, they wouldn't be running the pump as much,
Exactly.
which would cut down bills, which might reduce our assessments.
And that's what we're looking at. But today, I don't think there's like within arm's reach proximity, but what I understand in
You
the
can always build
picture,
something.
that it's easy relative to dig extend a ditch to connect it. So it's within reach, but it's just not, arm's reach.
Okay.
Yeah, we just thinking, you're talking about water, because, we do have agriculture, we have farming activities. And in the wintertime, it's very hard because our Waxahachie water is very dry, and when we have a freeze, we need a freeze control. Water is a very big concern. The Northwood Canal used to have water when we started, and now it's dry as a bone, so when we have a freeze, we have a problem with water. We need a constant water going almost till the next day. And water is always an issue, and we'd be glad to share if you can share some water with us.
That's what we discussed, and that's the benefit of getting down and talking. The one thing we do have is lots of opportunity to store that water, so that water could be used when it's needed.
Okay, I think we can wrap this up. The one comment I would have, and you just touched on it just a teeny bit, that being that we are in the state of Florida, the most important thing that is dwindling is the environment for the wildlife, and that only enhances the value of your community, whatever size it is. Because people do enjoy seeing wildlife at a distance and the beauty of it. I would emphasize to you that you would definitely want to keep areas for wildlife. I mean, I know you're saying it, but again, it's development.
We actually, we're committed to doing it, and we can even do it selfishly because you can't mow that much. What are you gonna do with 2,000 acres? We really truly see a very native landscape. You're not gonna see a bunch of coconut palm trees all over the place. We very native. We'll be utilizing, instead of using cypress mulch, we'll be using pine mulch. It'll be a very natural looking community, but with these marshes, we will create great habitat for wood storks blue herons and wading birds you know, people love to see that. And I
Across
can,
our roads now because their environment is disappearing.
we can see people coming down just and parking alongside the roads and getting their binoculars out and looking at these, you know, I mean, vast vistas of waterways and marshes. And that's, it's easy for us to do, and it provides great water quality, but the wildlife is.
It also enhances the value of your job.
Sure it does.
When we get down to the bottom line, the corporate structure.
Well, it sure does, and we will be promoting that as being something as green as we can be.
Okay,
I
well,
think Regina, you touched a very important point that improves the value of the property in the area. I think that's very important. Every morning when I go down to travel on D Road onto Okeechobee, I'm so angry with all the traffic coming from acreage. It's just like.
And it's coming from the acreage, and,
Yes,
and
yes.
people don't realize there are 40
Because
thousand
the acreage
people out
was
there.
developed, was planned, there wasn't any planning for the traffic,
Right.
for the drainage, for all those things. Now they are, I mean, we can see the hopefully improve.
But with but with this, you know, the acreage can still exist, and we don't want to
Right,
change
right.
the acreage, and it actually, all boats really do rise because it provides that variety. You know, somebody lives out here and their children live here and they want to have a large, they can go half a mile away and have a 20-acre estate. I mean, how much better could it get?
I think that is a good time to wrap up then.
Well, thank you very much.
We allowed a good deal of time.
Hopefully I
for
didn't
the
outwear my
presentation.
welcome. And if you ever want us to come back, we're glad at any time. Mark has our contact information. We're glad to meet and discuss and brainstorm with anybody.
Yeah, especially those utilities.
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, presentation's over. And we'll go on to 3B, review of draft capital improvements. Perla, do you need to go tell us what this is on the side, or can we continue to 3B?
We can continue to 3B.
You'll let us know when it's time for
Yes.
this? Okay. Who wants to start? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that 3D, as a result of town council action authorizing the FAAC to work in conjunction with staff to develop a policy for capital improvement projects. What we presented here is broad in scope, but narrow enough that it covers some of the hot topics such as transportation, roads, etc. We think we've laid it out fairly nicely. We followed the statutes. We actually, this is I'll say we borrowed it from other majors, which is good. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and we think it covers the majority of what the council wants and what you can present to the council if you like the policy. We've tried to cover it with what the town will do in the event of a request for an improvement. We've taken the opportunity to create a thing we call an IA, which is an improved area.
Fire.
At any rate, we've generated some nomenclature and language that we think we can use, maybe with some other thoughts, but we have this
You
item
basically want us to look through it and see if we have any objections to it, or
and make any recommendations for changes.
changes, eliminations, additions.
I can tell you for we've defined the process that you should go through before you do a capital project. Determine the need, determine the equity, determine whether there is legislative mandate to do something. I know that Mark's been working with the NPDES, which is a legislative mandate, which you control that, so you have to do something.
By the way, you mentioned that, our engineers have informed us that if we do B Road and we become the owners of B Road, we will probably have to do an NPD.
You say that again? If
We do B Road,
the town.
the town, which we're scheduled to do, that will definitely put us in NPDES.
That will definitely do what?
Definitely put us in the NPDES program,
It's a federal program for not,
National Pollution Discharge.
discharge.
B, you mean
Meaning-
the south or north?
Are we talking,
By the school.
and you're
By
talking
school and
about
the other-
South, you're talking about South B Road now, because that's what's scheduled.
Not B road, not north.
And being put in that program.
Not north across with the children, no.
And being put in that program does what?
It requires us to do a number of things, ordinances, brochures, information, tracking.
Well, that's gonna be true of any road you do. You just happen to be
Well,
doing
the
south.
town has skated because it hasn't owned anything to this point.
Right,
But now we're starting to own things,
right.
so that's gonna definitely,
So it doesn't matter what road it is, it's going to happen. But you're just saying B Road, South B Road is up. and
there
it's
is a
gonna
chance that we
accelerate.
might, there is a chance that, and we're gonna be having a conference call with DEP on Thursday. There was a chance that we might be able to put it off for a year, but that chance is getting slimmer and slimmer.
And OGEM has like this exceptional exception. But when you pay, that's what triggers,
Or when you coat the ozone, right?
I'm not going
When you
there.
might surface the ozone.
I'm not going there.
Can we get back to the policy?
Yes.
Please,
Okay, yeah, because that's what.
please, because I
Right.
want to mention a couple of things. We try to incorporate lots of things. The equity that y'all have been talking about, defining the project. Also, remember within the public services information that we provided you, they had the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split on the cost.
They also had other options,
They
too,
had-
did they not?
Well, no, they had that property owners, each of them on either side of the road would be paying one share with the town picking, a municipality picking up the 1/3 cost. The town council in all of our meetings, I know y'all are aware that they have not committed to 100% payment of road improvements. They've talked about sharing the cost with the residents, as long as the residents were in favor of it. We've included that portion, about 51% of the of the residents benefiting owners that would have to petition the town. And we've tried to encompass, Mr. Chu had a list of things he wanted. We've tried to put those in there. Mr. Johnson, Virginia, had a list of, we seriously talked about the equity and how to make sure it's fair for everybody. We've tried to include all those things within this fiscal policy, which is a portion of the road improvement. How the town's going to pay for it going forward. There could be times, I am sure, that the town would mandate that some things have to be done, and there might be some changes, and it gives them some flexibility. But for the most part, it is provided as a cost sharing for the residents, and we're looking at the assessments and doing it in that way. Now, you also know that the council decided that they'd like to have a referendum, to put forward to the town to see if they are in fact wanting to do the improvements on their roads, and they would like to put it on a referendum at some point. And I think
thought that was regarding a bond also, though.
well, that would first, it was, do you want the improvements? And if you do you want to pay for them? Right, Mark?
Correct.
But when there's a separate element, and that is changing the charter
Yes.
to allow
To allow.
that opportunity. in the
If the town, if the citizens so choose. Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the thought you all put into this cost sharing policy. I think it's very good. I think that if this policy ever get approved and implemented, and we have come a long way, I think this committee can say that it serves the purpose as charged. We appreciate that. This is very good. I do have a few comments, and then if we could, then Chair, we could walk through these.
Yes, please, oh, I would love that.
I think that it would be for the use of your time.
And then, I'd like to preface that by saying my concern is it's also, I'm concerned this is a very closed-end policy, but I'll comment after you're done.
Can we do it page by page?
Yes, please.
Yeah. On the first page, I think it's excellent that we mentioned some key points, like Pearl said, that to balance the public service need and fiscal capabilities. That's very important. We want to do everything, but we don't have anything.
We pulled this right out of the fiscal policy that you adopted in the council.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Like, we want to do everything, but we don't want to pay anything. That's not the idea. Or the same theory should apply to the residents. They want everything, but they don't want to pay anything. So that's wrong. Likewise, we need to make it fair. A suggestion that on the purpose statement there, on the second paragraph, the town shall provide funding, blah, 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 fair and equitable basis. Can we make reference to the existing ordinance, talk about the equity issue? So make reference to that as required by.
Which ordinance?
Yeah, I don't know what ordinance. I know
So
they
you're saying
Make
refer
reference.
to references?
Yeah.
We actually, the purpose actually is word for word, we copied it
Okay.
from there. and stuck it in
And
there.
make reference to that too, I would say. As
So, the ordinance number?
yeah. Well, it's okay, you can leave it blank, just you put it on later on. Yeah, make reference to that because that is the existing driving force. Existing driving force for the idea for that.
Do you know what that number is, Bill?
You could look it
A
up.
resolution number? no.
Okay, no, I'm just
Yeah.
curious, so if we, 'cause,
But
you know,
it-
Cheryl and I would just love to look at it.
And then the other part is,
We're dying to do that.
okay.
More than we can.
I'm done with page 1.
Okay.
We move on page 2.
Yes.
Okay, page 2, under item creation, 2C. I think we may want to clarify, what is 51%? You mean the registered voters? You mean the landowner by acreage? Or you mean
The 51% of the benefiting,
my
responding
question.
property owners. So let's say your road, your residents that live on your road, that benefit from that road, will come to the town with a petition and ask to the town consider. And so we would send a vote card to each of those benefiting properties.
That's the question though, Perla, of benefit, and here's an example. If you have 5 acres on, say whatever your acreage fronts the property, because there's a few questions here, and then there's someone behind you. Who's benefiting?
The people behind, let's say you have Hyde Park. Let's say we're gonna do Collecting Canal. I'm gonna use Hyde Park. Hyde Park has to come out to Collecting Canal. Hyde Park has residents that are behind each other. So it's not just the property that's sitting on Collecting Canal, it's those properties that sit on that road that Hyde Park intersects that can only come out onto Collecting Canal. Those parcels would also be part of the process because those parcels can't jump over a bridge to get to another road. They have to come out Hyde Park onto Collecting Canal.
Isn't that how it's done right now?
I understand that part. My question is this 51% calculated based on the number of voters?
No.
The number of residents? I'm just questioning.
No, it would be
How is-
a parcels.
Okay, can you
So-
calculate?
It's not acreage.
What is the
Yes,
denominator and
yes,
denominator?
it's not acreage.
It's not acreage.
Parcel.
It's my
So
parcel.
if I have a parcel of 10 acres, you have 2 parcels of 1 acre,
Say if I have
so,
1 acre
so
and
she
he has,
have 2 votes, I have 1 vote.
Yes, that's what
Yes.
I'm saying.
Yes.
So, that, I don't think that's fair.
but what is the assessment? My concern also
Well,
and we'll
there's
get into
3
that
ways you
further.
could do that. You could assess by
covered that.
parcel, we address these, you could pay, assess by
So that'll go
acreage,
further.
or you can assess by frontage.
For example, we used to own 60 acres, one parcel, I have one vote. If I divide up by 5 acres, so I will have 12 votes.
But this is the town, and,
No, I'm saying,
No, I-
because your purpose is to have a fair
51%.
and equitable, so you defeat the purpose by doing this.
but a town's not set up on, it's one person, one vote,
I'm
not
not
by
saying- I'm just
acreage.
Well,
suggesting-
do we not,
And what we can't say is because you have benefiting properties that don't live here, they're not voters here. The acreage is not really an accurate methodology
but
either.
it could be done.
It could be.
It is an option to do it
And it's
that
in
way.
and in this program, you can do it, you have to pick. It's going to be by lot, it's going to be by acreage, or it's going to be by frontage.
So you must pick, so that is one of my questions, but there's a couple of things. It seems, when I say this seems to be a limiting policy, it doesn't allow for variability.
Well, you understand that in that policy, in that statute chapter that we provided you, towns have to do it a different way than districts.
Right.
So it's not like you can develop, people have to receive a direct benefit to be assessed. So it's not like you can jump 17 blocks and encompass a whole group of people. So you're very limited on.
Okay, so let's just continue, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, in that case, if you're talking about benefiting, okay, like you said, if 60 acres is considered one vote, that means you're only being paying one. And if she got 20
paying one?
acres, yes.
Depends
you only-
on how the assessment.
Wait,
comes in.
That's the
There's
problem
different-
with the equity.
Exactly,
different
exactly.
methodology.
Virginia,
Right.
do you see it, Virginia? Because if 60 is paying, you're charging them one vote, okay, so they
benefit
pay
will be-
one. And if you got 20 acres and cut off 20 times, then you have to pay 20 times, because your vote is counted
Yeah,
20
20
times.
times.
Right, that's what I'm saying, where the variance,
Yes,
that's what we need to go through. Okay.
Well,
All right, let's just
I
keep-
take back my statement that it is unfair. Is it unfair?
I think you're showing bias now. I think there's a little bias going on.
With all the available sufficient information,
But I
That's my
think
conclusion.
back to questioning the sense.
Okay.
And
Back to the vote cards will be verified to determine that
I
at
mean,
least 51%
Take around.
of the
Yeah.
benefiting responding property owners within the proposed unit boundary signed in favor of the petition. So
51% of the benefiting property owners. And again, that's, I guess, it seems a little vague. Is there any way to be more specific on defining benefiting property owners?
You own 2, you benefit twice.
that's true.
He owns 1, he benefits once. Because.
If you own property at the end of the road and at the beginning of the road, you're gonna benefit twice.
It kind of,
So you're saying one
realistically,
vote per property.
realistic, yeah, property
Can-
owner.
Okay, so can we be a little bit clearer in our language?
Well, that's why we picked benefiting.
Well, in this
No.
town, people tend to twist words, and I'm just
Yes,
trying to
yes.
get this done up front. I'm just seriously, I'm not, people like to say, well, and we've seen it at town council meetings, well, they thought they were, when they were creating this, they were saying this, and 10 years later, oh, no, that's not what you meant. Same law firm, 2 different attorneys.
Well, this is just a first draft. This is going to go through the council. It's going to go through the attorney to make sure that
So
the
that-
language.
We can
But-
say that is
but
our concern.
Let me give you an example. I'm going to try to find a road that everybody can agree on. KZ. Because
Pick on me.
that KZ is a small road with some residents on it and it's unpaved. Let's say KZ decides that they want to have OGIM. What they do is they have a petition, which is your first little item on the packet, on the top. That little petition, they select their neighborhood street and their benefiting properties on that street, select a representative, and they all come together and they say, we would like to petition the town to consider improvement on our road. And so the town would take that area with the property appraiser and determine the benefiting properties. And that's who we would send the cards to. The cards would be mailed to the benefiting properties on KZ Road and those residents that have direct benefit. So if Cheryl lives facing KZ and she has 2 houses, properties behind her, but they have to come out onto KZ, that's their only way entry. Those properties would be included in that benefit. And the cards would be mailed to them. They have 45 days to mail them back. If they receive 51% of the respondents respond in favor, then there's a whole process. We still have to go through public hearings. They can dissent. The council can object. There's a whole process. It just doesn't happen. And it's a long process. It's not something that happens on a dime, and it doesn't happen in 3 months.
This is a year process, basically. If you decide now you want it, it's not until a year from now that you'll
Probably
actually.
July, and
Excuse me, Keith?
I had to go outside and thaw. Could you confirm with me, North Sea Road, when it was voted on, that was under the 51% rule?
I don't know what the
That's
district
That was
did.
the district.
That's
We
a
don't
district
know-
road.
That's
we don't-
acreage.
We have,
That's,
to-
I was,
For the district.
yeah.
that was, okay, that was the district, but did they use the 51 rule, or did
Yes.
they do?
For
By
acreage.
By acreage.
By
That's right, we
acreage.
did vote by acreage.
By
Okay,
acreage.
that's
But
right.
that's what we're trying to clarify here, because
Okay.
now we're talking with the
Right.
town, and but the town also has the option, just to have this out there for discussion, the town also has the option of using acreage if they chose to.
They can use acreage, they can say, okay, your 60 acres is gonna benefit more because it's closer to the
no,
intersection.
I have to
And
pay
as
more
a
though.
result, you should pay more.
Let's continue.
If you
Thank you
look,
for
wait
the
a minute.
clarification.
If you look on page 8, on item G, it breaks down how you could implement the funding of the proposed improvements on the 3rd line. It says per front foot assessment, per lot assessment, or per parcel assessment.
But it doesn't say per acre.
It does not say per acre.
Is there some reason where we can't put it in per acreage? We could always add per acreage as an option. My whole point is not to limit, but to
Exactly.
provide options.
And this is just for the assessment. It would be the assessment, not the voting. This is for assessment.
On the same paragraph 2C, can we?
Are we going back to page?
I was thinking about something, I don't want people to think that, that this committee is recommending this is the only option.
That's my concern.
Yeah,
But
maybe
it doesn't go anywhere until you
Understand.
have to, and you present it.
No, I
Because
think-
we're not presenting.
Could we maybe add a parenthesis at the end of favor the petition to say, or other options to be determined, approved, adopted by the council, so that they know this is not the
Well, we
only
would
option.
like,
That's
if you
where I
want,
found it limited.
we might,
So it will be limited
I would
to,
prefer we try to give them as close to a complete product as possible. So if you want to put in a per acreage as one of the options, then I would recommend we do that.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. I would suggest that if you don't want to put it in, that Madam Chair,
No, I'm fine.
when you make the presentation, you may want to address that, make sure that they know this is one of the options available.
One of the wording options, or other options, say that again, or other options.
Options for determining the 51%, the basis for determining the 51%.
But again, okay, and that's one way to phrase it, or we just simply go to page 8, paragraph G, and we can add a few select alternative options, again, limiting to say per acreage,
Such as.
or if somebody had another thing.
Everything y'all are saying, I'm going ahead and putting it in, so we will make these changes as y'all are talking.
Okay. So what page are we on now? Do you have another page?
He's still on C.
I'm done.
You're done with that?
Yeah.
Okay, now you understand on C is talking about how we vote, but over here on G was how you were going to be assessed. So it's two different things.
Right.
Okay.
Now, and again, here's, and I don't know where it's appropriate, I'm not recalling it right now, but what I want to say, my concern is, say the town hits I don't wanna limit us in this way, the town hits the dollar jackpot, okay, and we got money in. I don't wanna limit it to where the landowners have to be assessed when the town is sitting flush. I mean, I had, a little town paved a road for me, because they had the funds, and we weren't assessed. So I wanna know that that we have provided the option, that if the town has the ability to pay for it, they don't have to assess the landowners. How do you do that?
I think you could add a provision there to say what you have said.
Golden goose.
Yeah, and the town could
Hey, the way
change,
this town is changing, they're,
town could change the methodology of funding source so it has
Yes.
extra.
we didn't know there would be a cost.
Excess funds in
The,
that case.
the policy was structured as town roads versus non-town roads,
Right.
and that would be, I guess.
But eventually, they're all going to be town roads. We are a town, and based on what we've been given,
We think we are, yes.
I mean, except, I'm not getting into the ingress egress issue, I'm just saying we are a town,
But
and we
there
are
are,
talking.
but there are within our town, there are roads that are private,
Right.
that citizens have requested that they're private
Right,
and asked the town to
Keep it right.
identify those as private. However, in this policy, it does address the ability, if those residents would like an improvement on their road as well, and it's in conjunction with another unit, that they would pick up 100% of their cost for their private roads. And that option is available in here.
And the
So-
distinction is, the 100% is, they're gonna pick up, it's full cost.
right, versus the 33 and a third.
Correct, 33 and a third is just construction. It's not the survey, it's not the, it's none of, with the private, it's 100%
Right.
full cost, whatever it takes.
But again, what I'm saying is when we discuss town roads, and perhaps we need to be clear about that, where in this can we not limit, or where can we provide the opportunity that in the event of town roads, the town being flush with the reserves, and there's an opportunity that the landowners don't have to pay for it. Like, I mean, we're setting it now, and we don't wanna say, oh, they can change it in the future, let's just get it all done right.
As a provision at the end somewhere about with the funding section to say to the town,
My only fear
Right.
is, as you've seen in the purchasing ordinance, you have that catch-all that is an escape hatch to do anything you want. Do you want to start off with the ability that, okay, go spend all the money now, here, without any vested improvement by the resident? You follow me?
You
Well,
say
I
that
have
without
another-
any invested improvement by the who?
By the
I think
resident.
what he's saying.
By the resident?
I have $1 million, I'm gonna go spend it on the road now.
That's up to the town council to decide whether they
I
choose to or
understand,
not.
under this policy, they can spend $1 million, but that $1 million is only 1/3 of a $3 million project,
Right.
okay?
so the town will put in another 2 million?
No, the town puts in one, everybody else puts in the other 2/3. So that, how loose do you want the council to have ability to say, spend it all now, without anybody's,
We're not trying to say
assistance.
spend it all now, because we all know
I
that the
understand, but
town's
if you-
growing. So how do you limit?
if you structure that, what you're asking for, all it takes is a motion by the council.
One second. I think to address what Bill is saying is, okay, let's say $1 million, and they say they have $10 million, you have to spend it all. I think the policy, what Virginia's saying is that if you want to spend the $10 million, you have to spread it over everything. You can't say, okay, I like this project, so let's
That's
spend $10
not,
million on that one. But what you can say is that because it still be $10 million, then the project has to be $30 million, because if you're spending $10 million, you still have to,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That's not, Virginia's saying if we've got the 10 million and that's all it's gonna cost, then we don't have to assess anybody for the,
No, that's not what I'm saying.
no?
No, that is not what I'm saying.
That's what
because-
I understood.
Okay, and I'm not communicating clearly what I am trying to say. And I would assume there was something called reserves and
Yes.
set amounts as to what can be spent
Yes.
per year on a project. you have a capital improvement budget, you have a percentage of your budget set. I'm not saying I'm the last person to say take all the money and spend it. What I am saying is, if a project is approved and there are funds available, not 100% of the funds should be spent on one project. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're going through
Yes,
right now.
yes.
We have clearly said the capital improvement project on Collecting Canal Road was a great portion of the money, and we were not in favor of that.
Correct.
Um,
I understand, but right now, this policy says, spend $1 million, but the project has to cost $3 million.
Yeah,
And the other $2 million is coming from the people that are benefiting.
Okay, and that's where you think the restraint will come in, is because people won't want to pay the $2 million.
No, I think that people will want to pay. They're gonna get 1/3 of the construction costs. They don't have to worry about surveys, they don't have to worry about title searches, they don't
Okay.
have to worry about that.
I think let me see if I hear what Virginia said. Okay, say we also going to spend 1/3 and then 2/3. But say we got money, we got a lot of money. So instead of 30% of the town, maybe we can bump that up to 50% of the town money.
I
So
understand.
that will.
How do we provide for that variability
From 30 to.
without
Well,
letting
you-
them throw all the money away?
You could put something in there that you have to get at least 50%
Yeah.
from the benefiting owners.
Yeah,
You gotta have something, if you don't want it just gone,
yeah,
you have to have something that the people that are receiving the benefit have a vested interest in paying. Maybe you only want them paying 10%,
match.
but you could build that into that. Just be aware that when you do that, it opens the door that we can spend 90% and Virginia only has to cough up $1,000 if she gets a new road. Just
Well, and again, my point is,
Could you put in a schedule of percentages based on the monies that the town has currently? The larger amount, the more percentage they have to
Yes.
cover, and the less the citizens cover.
Like a scaling method.
You can.
Would that be a benefit?
The issue is, at what point, because we go do your road and we do your whole road because we flush with cash. 2 years from now, we're not flush. You want your road done. Oh, well, we're not flush, so now you're gonna have to
Yeah,
pay.
exactly.
I'm trying to keep it so that everybody gets treated.
Right, everybody
Then
everybody
all the
has to
roads,
say something.
then all the roads need to be paved simultaneously, and it's a done deal.
okay,
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
The position was about equity, and if we looked at all the roads in the town and how much it would cost to improve all the
All the
roads,
roads,
so
yes.
everybody had their road improved, it would be more than $10 million. So if you were flush with cash with $10 million and you did a couple of roads, but you, probably it's a $30 million project when you do the drainage, maybe more. So you would only be doing the roads for a limited few roads, not the whole community. So we would be back to where we are now. Some people getting the roads done for free and other people paying. So this is the only a mechanism where everybody makes a contribution and everybody benefits because they have an improvement if they so choose it. And there's going to be lots of people in the community that might not choose an improvement. They like their road dirt, and they prefer that, and that would stay like that.
And I guess what's making me bring this up is, with all this development going around and with all the dollars being spent on
There could be a-
infrastructure and road, there could be a flush position.
You could.
And that's
But then
what's,
how do you have to distribute that amongst
Everybody.
everybody?
Right.
But I love my dirt road so much.
I mean, if you wanted an alternate proposal, you could say that the landowner is only gonna be responsible for 1/3 and the town would be 2/3.
Yes.
But you need to have something that
Right.
does not fluctuate
Yes.
based on
Yeah, do you?
a
can't
lot
say-
of money or a little
Oh.
money.
You can't say that because now we can pay for it all, we should.
So we picked 1/3, 2/3, you could flip that and say 2/3, 1/3.
60,
We
40,
just-
whatever percentage.
We just here is a mechanism to make sure that everybody's treated the
And that
same.
might be a way of saying it, that there is an option to reverse the percentages. That just simply move forward, I'm just saying.
You could make it a 50-50 deal.
I think that could be it. We can let's make it easy, 50-50. But then say this year, tons of money. So we got extra money, spread it on everybody. So year by year, it's going to be this percentage, 60-40 is going to be forever. If you got more money, then everybody will pay $10 less.
Right.
So next year, no money, everybody pays whatever they have to.
But the town
Right.
council always has that
So in that
option.
case, they go by year
They always
and
can change the
everybody
policy.
benefits.
No, they can
So
always
by
change policy, or
subsidizing year by year.
they can always pay towards it like they do the garbage bill, right?
Yes, exactly, like
Okay,
the
that's
garbage.
all I'm saying, they always have the option
Exactly.
to supplement.
Yes, yes.
I think the option
Like a
is there.
garbage.
Okay.
They could make a motion to change to 25%, 50%. If that's the case, if they get the vote, then they can do it. They can always make exception to the rule if the situation allows. What I want to add in is that for item number 2E, we didn't say anything about the money, provided the money should have been appropriated or budgeted, because right now we're not sure. What if we don't have the money?
There's a whole process. You don't even get to that until
Okay.
after you get the vote registration and everybody's on board, and then you get estimates, and then
The money comes.
The money come, okay.
you don't appropriate it until you get down that road.
Okay.
Okay, and again, your third's just coming from this suggestion. This is just merely a suggestion, so.
It is.
And I can always present the option that these percentages could be changed.
The only reason we picked this is because I
This is
think we
standard.
heard the council indicate through some informal discussion that some of them felt 1/3, 2/3 was the way to go.
Okay.
With the town paying one. We're trying to,
No, I just wanted to understand the variability,
it's important that whatever you do, whatever you propose, it's set.
consistent.
So everybody gets treated, you're
Right.
not being shorted, you're getting extra, and he's out. So, it's all that.
I think, Virginia, you hit the nail on the head. Everybody already know the garbage situation.
Right.
And they like it. We pay the same thing, we got more money, then we distribute. I mean, that will solidify that it's always going to be equitable. If you're gonna get extra money, I'm gonna get extra money, and everybody does.
And
Otherwise,
the town
everybody has to
council
pay.
makes a contribution now to those members of the community that pay for their roads. They appropriate a certain amount every year to reduce their assessment. There's all kinds of mechanisms that could be put in place
So
when during
we can
good
add-
times,
Yes.
we can lower, because these assessments to do these improvements could be a one-year assessment, it could be
No
a
assessment.
multi-year assessment depending on the cost.
Which I gave Mark an Attorney General opinion, that I would like Mark in the bill to look at and see if it's relative to what we're discussing, and maybe present that to us, see if it has any bearing, Mr. Chu.
Oh,
This to you, yeah, this to you.
okay. One other comment I have is that regarding the future maintenance of the roadways after it is built or installed.
You want the road maintained too?
No, well, who's going to pay for the future maintenance?
Yeah.
The town.
The town.
The town, okay.
100%?
Yeah.
I just for clarification, because we have the start cost.
Do we have the 100% in here?
The title,
say it.
the title is capital improvement projects, we're not discussing maintenance in this
Okay.
policy.
Okay, that's good, yes.
At some point, you may want to talk about creating a separate fund. that
Well,
deals
if you
with
plan to have a baby, you gotta plan to have how to educate the baby.
Well, no, I
The baby will
understand.
cost,
So,
the
and-
maintenance.
So that's where that implication comes from, that once the road is laid down, people expect it to be there, just like what we went through in Compton and Marcella, and
I'm not disagreeing. And you should have in your fiscal policy, the maintenance addressed.
I'm just bringing it up. Happen
But I
to
don't want to put it in.
future maintenance here.
next
That's all my question.
those are all your questions?
Yes.
Right. So, okay, Madam Chair, if I may, I would like you to be firm on your percentage. This committee, don't go in there and say, you can have, pick the percentage, and that's what you present. You have to give a recommendation.
What percentage would, let's discuss
What do you
that.
mean by, what
Did he
percent?
say percentage on the 33 1/3 for the town?
50-50 or whatever you want.
50-50
I think 1/3 is fine.
for the town to only pay a third is fine? Let's be clear, we're talking about the town's percentage versus,
I think 1/3 is fair.
okay.
1/3 is better than nothing. Right now, all those are paying the old gym, they pay 100%.
So we're saying that we'll go with a third, and then we all will all, at the end of this, there's always the option, as with the garbage, if
Yes.
there's a positive cash flow and the town council chooses to offset, that is an option separate from this policy.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's,
That's fine, I just want to make sure that what gets presented is not options. What gets
no,
presented
that's
is,
why I'm
here's the policy.
talking it's out here, that this is, we're going with the options presented, we're going with the percentages here, and the town council always has the option in the future if they choose to supplement anything as they do with any project.
I think 1/3 is much better than 100% for whatever role.
I'm
it is.
okay with 50-50.
Yeah, I would prefer even 50-50, I don't know, Cheryl.
Yeah, 50-50, anything,
Yeah, I think.
but I know that you're
It'll be
saying
more,
we have to
people
keep
will more
it
likely to.
back so that the town doesn't read the council doesn't read anything else into it.
Correct.
Keep it firm, and this is it, and this is your option, and
Right,
that's
and
it.
I'd like to start with 50-50, because they're gonna change it anyway.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I just, whatever you take forward needs to be firm, doesn't need to be, well, this part,
No,
that
no,
part.
it'll be-
Because I recall them
Yeah.
admonishing me during the budget about what should we put in the budget.
Okay, no, I'd like to, Keith,
Just for clarification, would this revert back to pre-Ocean roads as well as new?
this is new projects going forward,
New
correct?
projects.
All right, so if you're gonna have a town paying a third, is the town will pay a
You're
third?
talking
No,
about
no, 50 now.
You're talking
No,
about
I mean,
50.
paying 50-50, are they gonna come back and pay 50% of the road that I'm paying for right
Yeah,
now?
that too, yes.
If the money available, I think they should
No, I think
consider that.
no, that, he's right, I
That-
agree with him.
that-
You have to pick up the roads that are paved
This
right
is
now.
for future capital projects, not for things that already happened. That is water under the bridge, it's.
That's
No, it's
fair.
not.
No,
No,
it's
it's
not
not.
fair.
Well,
It's not fair.
Keith, let me say this on a separate side issue, just separate outside of this. My opinion has, it's separate from the FAAC, this is a personal opinion outside of the FAAC.
Turn
If
YouTube
the
off.
town has the money, they can pay for everything, as far as I'm concerned. If we hit the golden goose, God bless us, okay? They can pay for everything, but
Well,
I'm
you-
approaching the perspective just on this
You're looking at
policy.
equitable
Yes,
situation for all
exactly.
town members. You've
Yeah, that's
got
true.
pre-existing conditions
Yes.
versus new.
Yes, we
And if
have,
you're creating new, you've gotta consider the pre-existing.
Right.
Unfortunately, that was a district water control.
No, but it
Well,
belongs to
they're
the town
gonna be,
right
they're
now.
goners anyway.
No, those roads belong to the town now.
but what I'd like to clarify right now is what I'd like to clarify is, we may have, that may be a separate issue to deal with in the future. What we're talking about is future road improvements. That may be something that gets revisited at some other point to be
It
dealt with.
won't get revisited.
No,
that's
it
not
could-
fair.
It will not
That's
get
not fair.
revisited,
That's
no.
not fair. That's not fair.
Can I say that at the time that was done, those were district roads and it was done by a district policy. That process started before the town even incorporated, when they started into the movement of that. Those residents voted for those road improvements.
And the
Now-
town existed at that time too.
When they first started discussing it and considering it, they didn't start the year before they did it. That was a process that took several years in the making. What I'm telling you is, after they improved them and they've assessed, these residents are being assessed for a 10-year period, then after the fact, they've turned them over to the town and accepted them. The town has accepted responsibility of those roads going forward. But they
I
didn't
suggested-
accept the cost of the assessments at the
I
time.
think that
That's not right.
to make a connection for the
No.
future
It's not
action,
equitable.
It's not.
I think we may want to add in a provision in here to say something like the town should consider having the same funding concept for the pre-existing Ocean Road.
But that would be in a
confused.
separate, that should be a
Well,
separate.
No, the separate, well, that only one section may not be sufficient for the whole.
I think you can address it, but that's not, that is not what the council instructed the FAAC and staff to do. They didn't instruct, go back and look at inequitable things that have occurred. Now, I believe some of the council have taken the position that there are inequitable things that occurred,
I mean, I
and they need
agree
to
with that.
address that.
Right.
But we need a policy, and what they're asking for is a policy.
Okay. In that case, Madam Chair, when you make a presentation, you may request that the staff be given direction to come up with some suggestion, recommendation for the pre-existing Ocean Road regarding their funding sources.
Separate from this policy?
Yes, separate.
But, because there's two separate.
That's
Separate.
This is a
That's a
directive
different-
from the town.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we need to
So,
deal with
we
this,
need to
the
consider-
future and then the past,
Yeah.
are two set, we need to suggest. Okay, great.
There's something comparable to this financial treatment.
Let me address one thing, to make it absolutely clear. When the district and the town, the district paid the road, they turned it over, and legally, ethically, even the liabilities, everything is turned over. However, they couldn't do it because of the covenant they had, that they were doing it. It was a legal issue. It's not that the town is not responsible for it, it's that the town just didn't take it because they couldn't do it. It's just like a mortgage, you know? If you have a mortgage together and I do it, they won't change the mortgage, no matter what. They will not change the
They can
mortgage.
focus.
So liability remains with you.
But
Regardless, you own, you can write it to somebody, you can write it to your son, whatever, but the mortgage still is yours,
But
regardless of who owns
the
it.
town didn't own those roads, so the town, in reality, could have never improved those roads. Those roads were not the town's, just like the remaining letter roads are not the town's, and collecting canal cannot be paid for with the town's funds until it is turned over to the town. Marcella, Compton, and Bryan were not improved by the town till those residents turned over those easements to the town.
Well, then let's make a recommendation
So the
to
district
turn the
should
roads
turn
over
it
to the
over.
town.
Okay, let me ask
Which
one
is, I've
question.
done that, I did that a year, I've been doing that.
Okay,
Do it again.
let me ask one question. We know my road, 148 Terrace North, is 100% turned to the town.
Oh,
So,
it's
yes.
good. They gave you percent now.
This is where she said pay for the one road you own.
We own 22nd Road North
Well,
as
then use
well.
all the.
And we own a portion of Raymond Drive.
Okay,
No, I'm just saying.
so the point is, two things,
Page 140.
let's just say this, we've upped this to 50-50, we're asking
Yes.
50-50 on this policy.
I-
We're also asking for the town council to consider a future policy to deal with pre-existing roads in a separate issue. Not to, so that's
This is really a
separate issue,
Yeah.
separate policy.
Do we need a motion to change that to 50%?
We're gonna go ahead and just
She
like
said she was just
consensus.
making
I'm
changes.
making
We think it's
changes,
a
we'll bring this
consensus.
back to you
Yeah, okay.
with all these changes.
Okay,
Okay, that's what, we can make a motion at the end to approve.
It's gonna come back. I would not want you to approve it, I'd want to throw it back at you.
Okay, all right. Are we done with this?
But you understand the rationale? It's
All right,
all-
we're not
I
even
think it's
ready
very
to
good.
discuss this at town council anyway, are
No,
we,
no,
until
no.
it comes back? So you'll admonish me one more time and put me through the
I didn't-
ringer on what?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I did
No,
not
no,
mean
I
to admonish.
appreciate it. No, I do appreciate the guidance, that's what I'm saying. I'm not ready to present this. You're telling us we're not anywhere near ready to present this till it comes back to us.
I think you should feel very secure in what it says.
Yeah, no,
And
this is a
be able
scary,
to explain why you picked 50-50 and the equity issue, and by
and
the
our
way,
concern on a
we have this
Sure.
stuff.
existing condition.
I agree 100%. If this town has the capacity to pay for things that landowners have been assessed for, we need to acknowledge it. Okay, are we ready to move on?
Yes,
Let's see. Okay, so now we are on old business?
Oh, is that all the changes you had?
For now.
Well, would you like to suggest some other changes? Because that, he was reviewing it. Do you have any?
No,
I think
We
it's very
included
good.
I would
acreage.
like you to take your
Coming from
time,
Lou, that's a compliment.
think about the
That's good.
philosophical position of equity and the distribution of funds and how it's going to occur. Because the next thing we have is, you have a form in here that people are gonna be able to use. There's gonna be a representative from cities or towns, municipalities. A property has to have a direct nexus of benefit. You can't have benefit, well, it's kind of sort of a benefit over there across the canal.
Well, this says road paving, trails,
Could be
drainage.
for any of those
Okay,
things.
we're not just talking
It's a-
roads
it's an
here.
extension.
No.
Extension.
Right, okay, and this is something I brought up previously when, at the town council. When we're talking improvements, we could be tearing up the pavement, we could be, it's an improvement as defined by the town council and the town.
We could have, the park over here for the horse rink that I think someone recommended.
Okay.
We could have lots of different things. This was just an example, but what happens is, we still have not identified, I don't believe, the prioritization. What if two people come in at the same time? Two groups.
Okay. And this policy, where in this policy are we dealing with the prioritization? Or not? Right,
That's the next section of a policy that we're gonna try to prepare.
okay.
This
So
one
this-
was the fiscal part
Portion
of
of the
it,
policy.
if they went with a sharing.
Okay. So you're presenting this to them in sections then, or as a, okay. We are creating this in sections to be presented as a whole. We're just working on the sections right now, okay. Well, I think we were concerned this was it, you know, that this was all that was being presented. And that's why we were just nitpicking.
No, because we had that methodology that we had put together on how do
Right.
you determine which ones when multiple projects come forward. And so the
That's
fiscal
still
was
valid.
the biggest concern that this committee had
Right.
this year. And that's what y'all had
That's
been
still-
asking the council, so this was the first step.
Okay, so this is an ongoing discussion, okay. This is not a final discussion.
The old memorandum that addressed the other issue about how you determine the prioritization.
Right.
Okay. If you go to questions, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
No,
No,
we're
no,
gonna
this
make
is
some more
simply
changes.
changes and they're bringing it back, right? So. Okay, now we are on old business, item 4,
Yes.
4A. Unit,
They're gonna do that, they're gonna bring in the software for next month.
right.
Are there any particular items that you would like them to address when they come before you? Do you wanna see sample reports? Do you wanna see,
Yes.
push the button, this is how you generate that? I mean,
I'd like to see what is it, how it's going to differ between what we have now, if and when their system gets implemented. Is it gonna be as easy to read, or are we gonna have to sit here and have color key-coded things, you know, where green is this and pink is that?
So if they come in and they show you samples of how the reports, you know, we'll give them what we
For
do
me.
now. Samples of how their systems would submit, you know, how the system, and we prepare the reports so you can see those reports.
Do we
When-
have Wi-Fi here?
yes.
Yes.
Could they provide an actual working demonstration?
They asked if, I talked to some of them this week. I didn't want to set a date till you gave us some input on how much time you want to spend with each of them. Do you want to do it all in one night? Do you want to do them separately at different days?
I don't wanna do 3 presentations or 2 presentations all at once, I think my mind would, I think one as a, however long, what is the standard, presentation, standard time for presentation?
I think we're doing a fairly simplistic,
You think an hour is too much, is it not enough?
I think,
We will give them
hopefully
up to an hour.
20 minutes, 30 minutes tops for presentation in the IAC, maybe then another 10 minutes for
Q&A.
questions, Q&A. I mean, we were discussing it the other, Carl and I were discussing it the other day, and it's kind of like, well, it could chew up to 3 hours if you did it all at one evening.
No,
I think if, in reality, knowing us, and your feedback, I think your feedback would be critical, you know, your daily use of software programs, your input would be critical. I could see going up to an hour, allocating an hour at most, just based on what happened tonight, you know, watching the time, an hour went by like that, so.
Just how much in the weeds you want detail, or do you want an overview? We talked about the different modules. We talked about that there would be modules that we wouldn't need. So implementation of those could be removed and the price could be adjusted. Let me see what else.
just the,
They wanted to know if you wanted to do a simulation. I didn't know if you wanted to go that far into the weeds. I thought maybe if they did a PowerPoint, they could show. We sat in on a webinar on the Vacant Registry's website, their program on how they do it. And what it was a PowerPoint presentation on the screen, and it showed like what the computer screen looks like. Maybe those are the kind of things that you would like to see instead of actually doing, the...
Yeah, like a go-to meeting with the
Yeah.
PowerPoint going through.
Yeah, but you don't, I guess the issue is you don't need to see somebody sit down and do a transaction.
No,
But
just,
you would like to know, here's what will be produced.
right.
If somebody does these transactions,
You know, when you're submitting an invoice and what it, because
how it works.
What's the process it
You know,
goes through before it all?
Where's the audit trail?
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Chen.
I don't proclaim to be an expert, although I have a CPA, CIA, CNA, CISA. I do think that the function belongs to these guys.
Exactly.
Let you guys make a determination.
Yep.
Do they meet your need? I do concern with how much it's going to charge. If they are able to meet your need for your operation, for the future expansion of the town for the next 5 years, I think they'll be good. If they get your endorsement with the reasonable price, that's fine. I'm personally not interested that you are interested in
Well,
the
that's not
detailed
it, but I mean,
reports.
when you look at it,
If
you
you-
look at our detailed statements.
Let me finish. I would rely on you guys, okay? And as long as they could keep the data, keep the transaction, which will be audited, anyway, that could generate reports to meet the need of the town council, to satisfy what the audit general requires, what the city requires, they'll be good. Okay, I trust that accounting have been existing for the last 100 years.
Well, those systems all comply.
I know,
with the
they're all the same, so that's fine, if you have
They're
a
all the
presentation,
same,
that's
no, but
fine.
my
It's
only
okay.
concern is that when you look at the financial statements, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm an accountant too, woo-wee-doo.
That's okay.
But it's the idea that I don't wanna be trying to,
Yeah.
I don't wanna have to read a key code in here and going back and forth and going, okay, now how am I finding this? I wanna make sure
And that's
that,
where the PowerPoint presentation would help on what their
definitely.
The
forms
reports would look like.
I want to make sure you
That's all I
guys are
need.
being held accountable for giving us your evaluation. I mean, you're the one
I get
working with
paid a
it.
lot for that.
Yeah, more than us at least.
And
We get a t-shirt.
and perhaps,
Yes, teacher.
With no comparison, it's not even what 33%. But I think if, as long as you guys are okay, comfortable with it, the price is within the range. that should be
Ultimately,
good.
yes, it is their decision, but I think we should have a little look-see as to what their system
Okay,
looks
okay.
like.
and I
so that-
would like to see when they present their information, it's not like, okay, these are the only modules and this is the only price. I'd like to see perhaps one or two options from each vendor, you know, on the
And-
modules and the pricing.
From our perspective, it's important that we have the committee's concurrence or support in whatever the recommendation
Right.
comes out to be.
Right.
You
Don't
always
wanna
have
be-
my
We just go with the old handwritten method, you know, and stay away from
I
computers.
get the T accounts with the jury.
Yeah, there
I
you
know
go.
that
You got
Ken
some of that
wants,
paper.
Ken is concerned about encryption, and that's something that I told them that they need to talk about in their presentation. Also, it's very important where they're located in their service, and it doesn't work really good when they're in California, and there's a 3-hour time difference, because when we need them, they're not at work,
Well, that's
and when
stuff
they're
you
at
can
work, we're gone.
point out
And
to-
that's important.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing, I think, they're going to be using it on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure, you would know what you need, what you're doing.
They wouldn't purchase something that they can't
Oh,
use.
true, that's what I'm saying, that I'm sure they'll do that.
But what
I
part-
mean, it's
part of
important that
what
we
we're
take a
looking
look
for
what it
is,
looks like. I
As
agree
the
with you.
town evolves, you want to be able to like, okay, I need that piece now.
You have hope for us when we're gonna involve.
I know you're going to evolve. That's not hope.
Okay, all right, so we've told you what we need on what we'd like to
would like
see.
to
So
us-
you think an hour, one
At
night,
most.
2 nights, or 3?
Well, we decided on, what, did we decide on just two presenters, or did we make it, or did we do three? Three of them? So then you want,
Let's do one, just anywhere from 30 minutes up to 1 hour maximum. If they can
Right.
keep it to 30, great,
And you want to do it all in one night, or you want to split it up?
Let's just
split it up.
So you would be willing to come in on 3 nights
Yeah.
and do this?
Well, he's in that CPA, AIE, you know that stuff.
You want my business card?
You want mine?
When you say 3 nights,
Yeah,
you
we
mean
could.
in 1 week or 3 separate months?
If we started
Well-
at 6:30, we could finish at a reasonable hour.
Can you do it online, that you could just project it, we can see the presentation?
Um,
You have all those Skype, and you have those Hangout, all those.
Oh, yeah, we
can
want
do
them
that.
here. I want to know that they're interested.
Are you suggesting perhaps one meeting where we have we'll break them up? They
Boom,
won't be
boom.
sitting
Yeah,
here
I think
listening.
that's-
How about we do it at 6:30 and we bring in dinner, like sandwiches
Oh,
and
she
things?
knows, but it's
So
just
we can go through them.
Then we cut down the presentation to 30 minutes.
Sold, Carla, sold.
We bring in dinner.
It's gonna be
Okay.
Well, the town's bringing
Subway.
the dinner.
Good
Sold.
idea.
I was
Now, are
planning
we
a
paying-
6
wait a
foot.
minute, They just said the town's paying the dinner. Are we paying half of that, or are you covering the whole thing?
The town.
No, 1/3.
1/3.
The town
Look at
will
the
cover
old
1/3.
policy, 1/3.
Oh, okay. So, will this be our next meeting or
You
2
fill up
meetings
the
away?
form first.
Yeah, you have to fill out the.
Well, you know that our next meeting is the night
That was the other
before,
thing we wanted to discuss.
the night before the town council's final budget meeting.
Oh, no.
And while y'all are very important, the town council budget takes precedence. And so we would like to move our end of September meeting to the beginning of October maybe, and just have one meeting in October at the beginning.
Okay.
And wouldn't it depend also when they can come?
That's why I didn't want to schedule them until we
So you're-
decided on what our date was.
So if they can, well, you mean for the next meeting, or?
Yes, we could have them at the next meeting,
Because
but we
here's the
won't
thing.
have it
If-
at the end of September.
Well, if they can come in the middle of September, would we object to coming in on a specific night to hear them?
Well, Cheryl, the problem is the council has all their final budget meetings on the 11th and on the 23rd.
Oh, so
And
September
we're-
is like.
Yes,
And they got a meeting on the 2nd.
and
That's
the meeting on the 2nd and the meeting on the 16th maybe. So,
2nd, 11th, 15th,
Okay,
23rd.
well then.
and then there's the end of the year, and
Okay.
of our
okay,
fiscal
enough.
year.
We'll postpone it until October.
You know, we normally meet on
Just tell
a
us when.
Monday. How about the 6th of October?
The 6th is a Monday?
A Monday?
Sure.
I can't wait.
Okay, 6:30,
Waiting too much
6th of
time.
October.
Well, lunch, dinner, 6.
Dinner at 6, and we have to fill out the form, and they're covering on.
Oh, she's filling out the form now.
Okey dokes. We have agreement on something. Do we need a motion? Are we good there, girl?
I think we're good.
I don't know what's going on here.
You guys are crazy.
4
4B, can we continue on to 4B, review of the purchasing ordinance? And that was included, did you bring us a copy? I did bring my previous.
Yes, you were supposed to bring.
Yeah, I
If
brought my
you
previous.
didn't bring it, I have extra copies.
My binder fell
I think I
apart.
have.
Would y'all like to look at one?
Yeah, Keith, you might want one of those because it pertains to, it'll probably involve, it'll be something Reg 10 for your committee. I mean, not that you would review it, but just when you're talking about making purchases.
I mean, from our perspective, what we would look for from you is your input regarding the draft that we provided, or whether you want to keep our recommendation is we're throwing out the bathwater
Right,
and bringing in a whole new ordinance.
right. Which we went through some of this at the last meeting.
And so now the question is, do you have changes within that recommendation, or do you want to stay with the old ordinance and tweak that?
Could you remind, did you have any comments, or I was gonna ask if you could remind us of the most significant changes you made to this?
Most significant changes were that,
Dollar amounts, I believe, and
I think the dollar amounts are okay. I think the most significant change is that the council is not authorized willy-nilly to purchase whatever they want, whenever they want, for any reason they want.
I can't pay 100% of the roads.
They have to follow purchasing and procurement guide. Well, we can kind of call this maybe best management practices, so that it still allows for sole source, it still allows for we define single source, sole source, still allows for emergency purchases if they're legitimate emergencies,
What about blanket purchase?
still allows for blankets, allows
PO.
for piggybacking. It allows all that.
Right. It just does not allow them to go out and,
Anyway.
there's a structure, there's
Correct.
a process.
A procedure that has to be followed.
Correct.
I didn't see any objections last time that we went through this. I don't recall us having any objections.
And it also lists all the exempt, exempt purchases.
Can we go over that, Perla, could you?
I think we went through a couple of things, but you decided to table it to this meeting and put it under old business so you could spend a little bit more time on it. You didn't spend that much time on it
No, but
before.
No, we still have to send this to the attorney, because
Yes.
I think a year ago that the state changed on page 10 of 17, which is paragraph G.
okay, hold on, you're saying 10 and 7. What page is that for us?
Oh, well, you don't,
The book.
This is the draft purchasing.
wait a minute, they brought their old book.
10 of 17.
Let me,
It's not 17, it's 75.
What is the item number? Or maybe that's what we just need to do, is what you're suggesting, just give it to the attorney first?
okay, the new draft purchasing orders was in there. I didn't bring the book, but I do have
Okay.
the ordinance. And it was on mine, page 10 of 17, which, let me see if I can find. If you find the page that says exempt purchases, yeah, there's after the list,
Yeah,
there's a bunch of bullets.
okay.
Go to the
Alright,
next
okay.
page.
It's on page 40 of 75 of your
Yeah,
old.
we're there.
Thank
Got
you.
it.
Paragraph G, local bid of preference. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that may have been eradicated through state statute.
So this paragraph in G
And that may disappear
would no longer exist?
and would no longer exist.
You didn't have it in your previous procurement ordinance, but the council's always talking about giving local businesses preference. So I found this and I thought this would be a good time to include it. And Bill's telling me he thinks that maybe that's,
Statute might have changed. I mean,
Oh,
and that's okay. If we lose that, then we lose it.
okay.
If you present this to the attorney, is that a final draft, or is that, is that something we can go over after the, you know, after he, where it says, okay, it meets all the, you know, all the legal qualifications?
Then, unless he changes something, I would say that if you're happy with it, then it can go to the council.
So any objections or clarifications or whatnot would be best suited now?
Right. The one thing I didn't recall, Paul may be able to remind me, would we require performance bonds and bid bonds?
Yes, we did on construction
And that was
projects.
my comment was if someone is able to self-fund their bond, I
The
wanted,
cash,
yeah,
the
that,
ordinance bond.
I wanted that included, that they could self-fund, that they were not forced to purchase an insurance premium, that, as you said, they could provide what the money order and the draft. I do have a question though, back on the exempt purchases. This is on page 40 of 75. The exempt purchases, I mean, I realize we have all these statements about specific dollar amounts and what can happen, and yet we get to exempt purchases and it does not refer to dollar amounts. It's
Because they are exempt.
That's my concern. So we have legal services
Correct.
are exempt.
This
Now,
is
these follow the
statute.
state statute.
These
Okay,
are-
this is state statute. I just want to,
CPAs are exempt,
all right, professional services.
engineers are exempt.
Legal advertising costs are exempt, dues and memberships for professional organizations, postage, legal advertising, insurance premiums, and it goes on.
And lobbyists, yeah, that's okay.
Computer software maintenance, renewals.
It's just the professional fee, the services that, which can add up quickly. All right, as long as it's all state statute. My only concern was really the construction being able to self-pay their bond. Does anyone else have any comments?
We also put in, there's a little something different, rotating contractors.
I saw that.
I don't know if the town will ever use something like that, but, you know, we put in this program, not for what you just do now, but maybe in the future, you might have a rotating contractors that do, like, hedging.
Right,
There's
that
a-
Mark brought that up during the hedging contract.
That could be a way, we included that in there. That's not necessarily means that that was just something you might want to consider.
There are specific services that I've run into in other cities, like towing services. The city calls, says, pull that thing off my right of way. Well, you know, that's big business, if you're in the towing business. So if I can get an exclusive with the city, I get everything they don't want. I'm in the money. I don't have to compete. So I've seen where it behooves some places to have.
Rotating.
You get the first one, you get the second one, you get the third one, you get the fourth one.
The equity is there for the town.
It's an equal opportunity kind of thing.
But those available contractors have been pre-qualified.
For the towing or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they've been selected like, if we are entitled to
They
serve
would
percent.
go through a bid process.
Yeah, okay. So, I just,
To be on the
something,
list.
something I want to add is, that's something to clarify, like under 23, at least 3 available pre-qualified contractor. I want to add the word pre-qualified, so that it won't be anyone on the yellow pages. Can you do that?
23.
23, add the word pre-qualified.
Where are you?
On 34 of 75, under item 23 that talk about rotating contractors, suggest to add a word, the second line, 3 available pre-qualified
Pre-qualified.
contractor. So that means when they're on the list, they have gone through the competitive selection process. That's one suggestion. The other one is going back to last page, page 33, under item 11.
So these are definitions, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
uh,
Emergency purchases.
Could you clarify that, maybe I want to add a word at the last line, at the end, or welfare of the town and its residents. I would suggest to add the word its residents. The town, and that's the town you really mean everything,
I mean, everything.
everything, not just the town, you guys.
No, that had nothing to do with us,
Okay.
this is the residents.
Or the town, that's fine, as long as you all agree. And then, Pearl just talk about, when we say local bidder, we only limited it to Luxembourg Groves. Is it too restricted?
Well,
That's our town.
that
I know,
is,
well, I mean, I don't know, do we have enough in here to be competitive?
no, what all this does is, if you go out to bid, and it's $100 bid, the local guy can come in at 105 and he wins.
But you're still having to check by the attorney anyway, that's, you
Yeah.
know, this goes along with what they're asking the
Local
attorney
bidder
to check.
preference. It said, basically, what the rules reading now is, if they are no more than 10% above the low bid, they get the bid, they're the winner.
So the local refer to,
In the town.
okay,
Okay.
I don't know that that's.
if 10%, is 10% the cutoff?
That's what we structured, we could make it 5.
Well, I'm not asking, I just want to make sure that it's not automatic award to the local,
It is automatic award?
within 10%.
Yes,
If that is within 10%,
if it's within 10.
okay.
Okay.
I want to make a general comment. I think that I have read many purchasing procedures in my past life. I think it pretty much has everything that we need to have. And I don't have any other comments on it because it's like a boilerplate of a municipality for purchasing code. So I think it has everything. So I
We
really
also,
want
we also put in this little thing on sole source and single source,
What is
because
that?
this little, one of
She
these
handed it
packets,
out.
this handout, we had only included sole source, and Bill wanted a new item called single source procurement, and so he provided this little handout.
Yeah.
He would like that included if,
The difference, single source, sole source means there's only one provider. That's it. Single source is, I have a John Deere tractor. The clutch went out on my John Deere tractor. There's lots of clutches, lots of companies that sell clutches. But the only one that works on my John Deere tractor is from John Deere.
Okay.
So that's a single source. So when I go to do something, I gotta go to John Deere to get it. That, it's fine distinction, but it is, and it becomes,
No, that's okay, that's good,
problematic.
yes, correct.
Especially if the other one's cheap.
I know.
And it can be.
I hope it can.
I've been
Does
there.
anyone have any objection to including this?
No, it makes the distinction which needs to be made.
Yeah.
And this is being added where?
on the definitions on page 34 of 75, after sole source purchase, so it would be a number 26. And then I would change the other numbers.
Okay.
We think that the Inspector General would appreciate this ordinance.
Not touching that. All right, so that takes care of comments on.
Well, I would solicit a motion and approval with the recommended changes that you discussed this evening to be presented to the council.
For this purchasing,
Yeah.
after you have the attorney review it,
Yes.
of course. Mr. Chu, would you like to make that
So
motion?
move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I need to say the motion? All those opposed? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
And
you will let us know what the attorney says and when we'll be presenting that to the town
Yes,
council.
I'll be right there behind you.
Okay.
That's what they say that I totally support you. When they start to shoot, I'll be right behind you.
You've been watching
I know
TV.
that.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Perla, is this part of the handouts? The approval of 5A, approval of fiscal year 2014, July financials?
No, we do not have the reports.
Okay, so we are going to table, this is postponed?
And those will come up at your next meeting, so you'll have July and August's reports at the same time, at your next meeting.
Okay.
What about, I mean, since our meeting isn't until October, we won't have the September financials.
Oh, yeah, we'll have those too.
We'll have
We'll
July,
have all
August,
three.
and September.
Yes.
And as soon as we get them, we will go ahead and.
Yes, as soon as we get August, we're gonna send those out.
There's no free dinner, you have to do 3 months together. That's just a reminder.
Okay, so items 5A, and is 5B also?
It's in your packet right there on the side. Remember, we do not
Okay.
provide the bank statement in the
Alright,
agenda
so,
packet anymore.
5B, can we say that we will take this home and review it and give you our comment?
Right,
Because for us to, it would just be too time consuming.
sure. And I also provided, because we didn't have the financial report, I provided the 2 check runs for the month. And I also provided a copy of the 3 deposits that weren't the electronic deposits.
Okay.
And it'll show my handwritten notes on the account numbers that each of those which also reflects cost recovery accounts. We added 2 new cost recovery accounts, and we received more money from Atlantic Land Design, which is the commercial part of the Simon property. We received the $40,000 from the district for the grant,
Right, which is in here.
and I included the backup on what that grant money was supposed to be spent for, and it's on that
Okay,
North
that'll be
Road.
in 6. We're gonna get that and go further detail in the administrative update. Okay, so for now, 5A, 5B, we will review, and we can, is it acceptable if anyone finds comments they wish to make on the bank statement, they can simply contact you in the office? We don't have to go through the meeting process. We can, at the next thing, if you need us to approve it, do so. Mr. Chis, if you have any comments on the statement, you just call Perla.
Yes.
C, review of planning and zoning invoices. Land resource management.
And the 3 invoices, one of them was for council-directed authorization that was not cost recovery on the wildlife issue. And then the other 2 invoices were one for Solar Sport and one for Simon, and those were charged to the cost recovery account.
Any comments, any objections? Okay, so as far as, new business, so we've basically gone through everything. Okay. We can move on to administrative updates.
And, you know, those are just the reimbursements that we provide y'all just for informational purposes. There was 3 reimbursement, and have the backup to go with it. The other was, you had requested, you know, when you were asking last month about the $40,000
Yes.
funds for, so we provided the interlocal agreement for just y'all's information on the equestrian trails improvements at the town, and the county agreement with the district that follows that money. And what it does is reflects the $40,000 needs to be spent on North Road for the equestrian trail. I know that you had asked about, you knew that that money was earmarked for specific, you didn't want it lost in the.
No, right. And I wanted the written documentation that supports the purpose of the funds.
Yes.
Okay.
looks like it's all been provided.
Yes. And then the last thing was the resolution of that $28,000 counterfeit check that was the letter from Wells Fargo that we received on the 12th. And we did receive the deposit on August the 11th. They deposited the $28,000 into our account. They credited it. The originating bank that received it is the one that returned the money back to Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo was successful as well. And then the last thing, I provided you a copy of 2 checks. We had another attempt.
Oh my God, again?
Yes,
Just like Ron's signature, you see
That's
that?
in the stuff on the side, right?
Ron's signature.
yes, the
They
last,
did not pass.
those did not
So
pass.
positive pay is in effect?
It's working.
Well, the positive, this wasn't a part of the positive
Oh, it wasn't,
pay,
this was
but-
fraud?
but this was, they thought maybe, they knew it was a fraud, but they wanted to submit it anyway to make sure, because we have exceptions. Because if we issued a manual check and it wasn't a part of our process, they give us 24 hours to respond. And if we don't respond, they reject the checks. But they knew, they contacted us and we responded immediately, and we talked to them on the phone and over the internet, and those checks were not paid. But you'll see the 2 signatures. You need to understand that these 2 council members last signed checks together back in last February. So their signatures don't look like the signatures that they were signing checks in February. It's a little off. It might come from ordinances. It couldn't come from resolutions where they're picking their signatures. We just started the checks at the 6,000 level. These checks are at 6820. 28 and 29, and they are both for 28,500. The last check that went through was 28,000.
So when they inform us, we say no, do they got those people?
I don't know. They called, hadn't released the funds, and the issuing bank, they did tell me, was doing it a little different. They were requesting that Wells Fargo, they sent the checks to them, but were requesting a cashier's check from Wells Fargo, because the bank that was receiving them wasn't paying out either until they received a cashier's check. And that's a little different than the process that was done before. They don't tell me what bank was the one that was receiving it, if it was in this country or it was outside of the country. They don't share that information with us, but they did share these checks, and unlike the ones that was from Spain, the last 3, we've had incidents where it didn't go through, but the 3 incidents before, including the one that did go through, all were from Spain. These 2 are from England.
Wow, these guys really.
It might be an English company, but it could be just happening right here in Palm Beach County or somewhere in the United States. It doesn't necessarily mean it's happening overseas. But our positive pay matches the check number, the amount, the date, and the payee. So all of those things have to be exactly the way we submit them 24 hours before we release the checks.
Scheduling September 22nd, 2014 meeting has been done.
We finished.
We're
We're not
finished.
doing that meeting.
Okay, closing comments? Let me ask you this, Mark, do you have anything else for administrative updates? Okay, anybody else, administrative updates? William? I thought I'd ask.
I've been told to keep a button on, so.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, closing comments?
Oh, that's good.
Well, Keith left us, he's not gonna give us a closing comment.
He just had to defrost again.
Okay. Cheryl?
Well, I look forward to the presentation from the accounting softwares. It's a good meeting, and we'll see you in October.
Yes.
Good meeting, thank you for having the cost sharing policy.
Yeah, it did a
And very
great
important
job.
step.
Perla did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think the procurement policy too is very important. I think the comments made by the public were important tonight too, especially something to be considered by us in the future for the pre-existing roads. So I think we got a lot covered tonight, even with an unexpected presentation. So,
You still managed to keep it on.
Still on the agenda. There was a lot, you guys covered a lot.
yes, we did.
A lot.
You guys covered a lot too.
I know, I'm good.
There's a lot of giggling going on too. I apologize for that, but I don't. It was just, we needed it tonight, just a little stress relief. Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
I second.
meeting adjourned.
I gotta use the gavel. There we go.
There, then